Hi guys, how you doing? This is Christine. If you don't remember me, I've not really that active on YouTube. I've been on YouTube. This is my second video, really. I'm trying to do other things. I do work, and I'm trying to write music. I'm not doing well. I've been having to move around a lot. So this is my second video just to kind of update you guys for anyone who's following. I did notice that I've had a lot of views on like SoundCloud, and it's not even my album yet. It's really just literally me singing cover songs of like Rihanna and like my favorite artists and things like that. So I just want to update you on my life and also kind of give you a little bio, and I have a little like activity for you guys to do. Not really a nice activity actually, but the thing that happened to me wasn't very nice, so it's kind of the result of that. If you haven't known me for a long time, I think a lot of people who've met me, they know parts of the story, they don't know the entire story. The entire story is that I've been followed for years by the Board of Ed, and I live in New York. I'm a New Yorker. I'm a native New Yorker. On top of being Turkish, I am American, and I was raised in New York. I've been followed by the Board of Ed, and I'm not sure if I've been followed by the state as well. So I've been followed for years by those two kind of entities in my life, and we've never come to an agreement. We've never, like, we don't agree upon many things, and it's a cultural clash, really, what it comes down to. And it's the reason I haven't been able to do anything productive with music, or, you know, even, I wouldn't go into acting, but really productive in my life. It's been a problem almost every single time that I've gone to do anything. Excuse me, I'm laying in bed. I know this is funny, but yes, I am laying in bed. Anyway, so this started out in my elementary school. In my elementary school, I was kind of like disciplined for not, you know, showing up or doing, not really badly. I passed all my classes, but there was, I guess, a history of absences and problems with the teachers. And the problem was my mother did not want to take me to school all the time. And when she didn't feel like taking me to school and they asked about it, she would go and tell them that I was lazy, I didn't want to go, when she really wouldn't even bother waking me up. Or my father was hitting her. My father wasn't hitting her. The only time I've ever seen my father hit my mother was when she pretty much got me kicked out of school, and she tried to kidnap me. And I think those are legitimate reasons to hit anyone. I don't find that even abusive, because the fact that she abused me, got away with it, and almost got me kicked out of school, and then would run around and say that she wanted divorce money. She pretty much used me for money in that way. She wanted to get away with getting a divorce, running away with me, and living off of his money. So I've had problems with the state and the Board of Ed since then, and it's been, I'm almost 30 now. As you can see, I'm not a young buck. So it's been probably 20 years, 25 years even, that they've been giving me problems in school. Every time I went to school, they wanted to question me or discipline me on things I didn't understand. So that. The little activity that I want you guys to do is what really brought the case to kind of like a peak, you know, and a very strong turning point was my middle school dean. Her name was Danielle Domingo. And when, I guess I didn't go to school or whatever happened, my mother went into counseling with this teacher, or dean, whatever, and she complained that she had been abused by me and my father, and that I would not listen to her because I sided with my father, which is halfway true. But the fact that she wasn't doing her job as a parent and she only wanted to use me for money is insane, because she sided with my mother and pretty much kind of mocked me out of school. She didn't give me an official notice, so there's no way to prove it, but she had other students and other teachers mock me out of school, kind of going, we don't want you here, we don't like you, we don't like your kind, we don't like who you are, whatever. And this is actually continued behavior from my elementary school, and I never recognized it from the start. I never knew exactly what it was. I just thought, oh, it's just a bunch of racists, like I'm gonna just ignore it. But it was actually my mother behind the entire situation. She would go and say that I was a bad child and I was encouraging my father to hit her, and my father was hitting her and hitting me. And again, the only time he ever hit her or abused her was when she did something astoundingly insane. Try and kidnap me, try to get me kicked out of school, and she would deserve it. And anytime he ever spanked me, it wasn't a very hard spanking. It was always, she did it too. She spanked me as well. He wasn't the only one spanking me. He'd be like, why didn't you go to school? Or why did you do badly? And it wasn't for any insane reasons. But this woman in particular, I love her, because she went with the whole idea that he was hitting my mother, he was hitting me, and keeping me out of school because we're Turkish. And as Turkish people, we don't believe in women's rights, and we don't believe in getting an education, which is not the case. That is absolutely not the case. It was the reverse case. My mother did not want to take responsibility as a parent, and she wanted to live for free. She was not, my mother, I just want to let you know, my mother is not educated. She went to elementary school and she didn't work. My father paid for everything. So she wanted to get away with kidnapping me, getting divorce money, and living off of me while mistreating me, and using that as excuses to kind of just live and be free and do whatever she wanted. But this teacher in particular, she took it to that extent that we were, not complying with state, or we were not complying with the country, or because we're like terrorists, or whatever she thought, without consulting me. We actually had several consultations, me and this woman, Danielle Domingo. We had several meetings where she would go, is your father hitting you? Or her and other teachers, or I'm not sure if it was her, but she would advise other teachers to counsel me. And I did get counseling throughout the whole entire time, beginning in elementary school. Was your father hitting you? In elementary school, I was pretty much forced by my mother to say, he hits me slightly, but it's like a spanking, and it's only because, I didn't do something good. And they would be like, whatever. But never in the entire time did they ever ask me or pull me to the side away from my mother and say, is your mother hitting you? Is your mother the abuser? So it was racism. It's racism because they just they didn't consult me fully, and they sided her without talking to my father. And my father didn't know what was happening. He wasn't informed. And he was the one paying for the household. He paid for the household. He paid for the taxes. He paid for my food. And my mother would go as far as try and steal me on his money and then get away with everything. And when I got kicked out of school, mocked out of school, it was her fault. And there was no way to get me back into school without him paying extra money for private school. And that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous because that's not fair to me, and that's not fair to my father. Why was I kicked out of school without you consulting either one of us? So, sorry, my screen just kind of like turned off. So anyway, we had that problem, and it led out to my father passing away. And according to the doctors, he passed away naturally. But how naturally he passed away, I don't know. I don't think it was a natural death, because the fact that they followed us, they chased us around, they harassed me in school, and they harassed him at work. This woman called the police. This is the problem that I want to, really talk about. This woman, Danielle Domingo, or whatever staff that was under her, I believe it was her planning, called the police on me and my father for my mother. Now, if you have a consultation with the student you're supposed to be working for, you're not working for one of the parents to get women's rights. That's not the case. That's not your job as an educator to disrespect the student and the paying parents, to fight for a mother because you believe in women's rights and you do not believe in educating someone, particularly only because they are Turkish and you don't have the same cultural views. If this was based on him spanking me, why wasn't my mother punished for the same thing? She spanked me as well, and they both spanked me equally. Actually, I think my mother spanked me more often. So that's ridiculous. She called the police on me and my father. My father lost his job because he was being followed by the police. They were harassing us at our job, and I was kicked out of school because this woman, Danielle Domingo. And did they not follow us and try to incriminate us? Absolutely. Absolutely. I would go to work, and they brought in other students who were caught from, previous years, who were in trouble, who have gotten in trouble and went through counseling, I guess through the Board of Education or the police department, I'm not sure which. They would bring in these other students to my workplace, to my literal workplace. It's not like I consented. I never consented to being followed by anyone. There was no consent on my part from the Board of Ed to the Board of Ed or to the police department to follow me. They would literally bring in criminals, plant evidence. They would put drugs where I would work and go to school, and then have that as an excuse to search me and gather information on me. And because of that, we lost so much income. We went from a nice household. When I grew up in a house in maybe, I think it was a 4-bedroom house, a 3 or 4-bedroom house. And the slow decline from that is leaving me to rent out rooms, barely surviving, that I have to rent out rooms after my father's death, after being harassed by police and these other students that had followed me because they had to. They were getting kind of let off and reduced sentences for whatever, or detentions or whatever, for following me and reporting back to the Board of Ed about my life and what I've said and where I'm going. And they have followed me for years doing that, just having me followed by other students, other people, and just tracking my behavior. And I fully believe that it led to my father's death, that my father died because of it, because we couldn't work or do anything without being harassed by these people. And because we couldn't keep our jobs or get educated, I couldn't afford his medical treatment. And when I couldn't afford his medical treatment, the time that he got ill, he died. We went to the lowest of the low in doctors, and they were also being harassed by police and state officials who wanted to prove us guilty. Prove us guilty is their goal. And not treat him. So it led to my father's death. It led to me losing my apartment because my father paid for the apartment. Losing our home, even before that, for years. And she did this all for my mother. As the dean of a school, how can you attack a child who sides with their father? I never sided with my mother. We went through consultations. In the consultations, I've always said, no, I side with my father. And the fact that she could go, well, you're Turkish, and for women's rights, she deserves an equal chance to parent you. No, she doesn't. If she didn't deserve an equal chance. Her equal chance would have been her going to find a job and paying for me herself. She didn't want that. She would not work. She did not want to do those things. She didn't take responsibility for anything. She didn't hold any jobs. She didn't pay. Everything I had was from my father. Either I worked for it myself, I had to drop out of school, pay for everything by working. My education was cut in half because this woman wanted to kick me out and punish me for abusing my mother. That's not her job. Her job is not to ensure my mother is safe from me or my father. Because God knows I would have attacked her and my father would have attacked her if she tried to kidnap me. And her goal was kidnapping me. So I don't want anyone to kill anyone or bomb anyone or attack anyone, or this is not something about Islam. I'm not Islamic, as you know. My name is Christine. There are Christians in the Middle East. That's not the point. The point is I want her to suffer consequences for what she's done. And it's simple consequences. Being fired, being written up, instead of her having any consequences of killing my father, essentially. She didn't take a gun or, take a bomb and blow up my house or kill my father. She didn't do those things. But she did make it impossible for me to get an education and make my father to work. She made it impossible for us to live because she wanted my mother to have rights that she didn't deserve. I understand a lot of people talk about rights. I have the right to speech. I have a right to... This is a huge thing in Muslim countries. Women are not giving rights that they don't deserve. I genuinely believe this. Now, if you want to argue, the women are not allowed to work and therefore they can't get rights because they can't pay for anything, in America they are allowed to work. If you want to come over here from a Muslim country and not work and not pay for anything and live off the man who pays for everything, you have no right. That is not a right. I don't believe that you deserve those rights. If you were genuine, then you would have gotten a job. You would have gotten a GED. I've known many people to do it. You would have done all those things yourself or with help. There is help out there. And paid for those things. And then that's how you get rights. That's how you get equal rights to speech and, to voting rights. Because that makes you educated. If you're not educated, then I'm sorry. We can't do anything for you. You're not allowed to vote because you're not educated. You can argue with me on that. And I won't say, I won't, say it's completely fair because I do understand that in those countries they don't have jobs for women. But you know what? That's them being poor. And that's them not having money for everyone to work. And that's not racism or sexism. That's the reality of the world. The reality of the world is we can't afford to employ everyone. We cannot afford to educate everyone. And that is my point of view. If you want to call it an Islamic stance, I don't know. Now, do I think it's completely right? No. Anyway, so this woman, Danielle Domingo, I really want you guys, if you have anything to say or, no, I really want you to just go on ratemyteachers.com contact the Board of Education, because this didn't just affect me. This affected me. It killed my father, and affected several of the students that were in this situation. There are people I could name. I'm not so sure if I should name you, but there's at least 20 kids who were involved in these situations who had no clue what was going on. And I would go as far as saying there were thousands of kids affected by this situation, and it was all made by the decisions were all made by female teachers who believes my mother had the right to take me without having any income or education or sanity. She had no sanity, no education, no job. She just wanted to take me and live off my father and abuse me, and everyone thought that was okay. And they lied to the students that were involved in these situations. I would go to work, or I would go to school, or I would go down the street, and they would have these other kids follow me and lie about what exactly happened. They would tell them, oh, she's on drugs, go follow her, we have to, help her out, she's addicted to drugs, her father is abusive, we need him to leave his job, things like that. They were lied to. If you're one of these students who went to these schools and you know my name, you were lied to get you to do poorly in school, because these things were a distraction. They were distractions for me, and they were distractions for you. You were told to do inappropriate behaviors, and instead of knowing better, you just did them. You were told to give drugs or plant drugs, and as a child, and not understanding Muslims or not understanding Turkish people, you just said, okay, she must be a terrorist. And I don't even blame you to the full extent, because I know these events are too confusing for children. People don't want to explain things, and it was too confusing for children. And they dragged in, thousands of kids from all of my schools to follow me around at my workplace and my schools and whatever, and plant drugs and do crimes. Stalking is a crime, by the way. You're not allowed to stalk people. Spying is a crime. You're not allowed to spy on people. I didn't give you permission to follow me. And when you lied to me to get information out of me, you were spying versus helping me. So I want you to know that. So you were forced to do crimes because you were tricked as a child. And that's pretty much it. So I want people who know about the situation to wake up and realize what was really going on. What was really going on was that my mother was trying to kidnap me, and the school board, the Board of Ed, thought it was okay. And it was not okay, because she wasn't even sane. My mother's not even emotionally stable. So it's not okay. And I want you to go on those websites, ratemyteachers.com, any websites, the Board of Education, and make those complaints. Make the complaints for me, and make the complaints for you. I want you to make those complaints for yourself, because the police were in the situation, they brought drugs into the situation, and it got you kicked out of school. It got you to do bad, wrong things, and it made you, miss out on scholarships. Things like that. Miss out on scholarships, miss out on schools, get criminal records. I know one of these kids impregnated his girlfriends. Instead of going to school, he would go and hang out with this other girl who I knew, and she was also caught on drugs. Instead of them giving them proper counseling and proper discipline, their sentence would be to talk to me and try and get therapy with me. Meanwhile, it was improper. It wasn't, it was actually planned against me, and it turned into conspiracy. And while a lot of the children were guilty of doing something beforehand, and were told to continuously get into more trouble, to kind of see what direction they were headed in, what was wrong in their head, things like that. It was a conspiracy against me, and it was pretty much a conspiracy against those students. So we can complain about this woman who made this decision to call the police on a child. I was 12 years old at the time, even though this started in my elementary school. This woman called the police when I was 12, and she told the police that I was abusing my mother and my father was abusing my mother, and in the reality, she was abusing me, and she wasn't emotionally stable, and she didn't have a right to take me. And I stand by that. Her name is Danielle Dimango. I want you to complain about her. And I want you to go to ratemyteachers.com and thumbs her down. And the fact that she did wrong, and the police and the Board of Ed ensured that she would not lose her job by giving her additional training for getting into this situation, is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. How is it that my father lost his life, and other children were penalized? They were distracted from schoolwork, and, pretty much semi-kicked out of school. Because this woman wanted to involve the police when there should have been no police. Only police, if there were any police, they should have arrested my mother. And that's the end. So I want you guys, if you're any of my fans, or for me, or any of the people who are involved. I know a lot of people who were involved. They went on drugs for these reasons. Just because the police, would not leave the situation. They were like, this is weird, this is a Turkish student being harassed all the time, and we don't know what to do. So they kind of wouldn't leave the situation and made things worse. And a lot of the kids were on, they did do crimes in the first place, but some of the kids didn't. Okay, so it is Danielle Dimango who called the police on me as a 12-year-old little girl, to control me and to manipulate me, and she tricked thousands of people to follow me and harass me, and that's the reality. Now, there's another half of this story. Because this started in my elementary school, I believe that the Board of Ed went out of its way to get other people in not my household, but related to me, employed. Now, people want to argue with me about this because it's kind of hard to prove that the Board of Ed could actually find more people that were just really related to me and not in my household, employed. But I do believe that is the case, or the fact that, okay. Alright guys, so I just really, let's end it. Okay, so I really didn't know what to say about this possibly employing other people in my, not family, that are related to me. I think it is a possibility, but I didn't want to talk about it, almost because there are people in my family who are not Turkish, and they worked for various government and things like that, and I can argue about how I got them employed versus my father, but whatever. I don't think it was the right decision to make. These people that I'm talking about, they're from different countries, also from the Middle East. They're also Christians, and they're also, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but they're kind of like an ethnic minority, and it's also the minority that they are kind of also anti-Islamic. So the fact that it would kind of get my father unemployed and get these people, especially women, employed who were anti-Islamic is suspicious to me. those people that I'm mentioning, their ethnicity kind of involves inbreeding. There's a mentally like disabled, I don't know, person that I used to know. I'm not sure if he was related to me, but he used to go to our like church, and he literally was the result. His handicaps were the result of inbreeding. I asked my mother and my father why he was, he was like special. He had mental handicaps, and they said it was literally because these people were cousins when they got married, and the child that they had was an inbred, and because of that, he had mental disabilities. But somehow, the Board of Education overlooked all of that and still kind of wanted to blame my father versus my mother. Meanwhile, there's people in our family who kind of like are inbreds. So they had to be a little more diligent when they were making these decisions. I'm not sure, I believe the people who were kind of hired were either hired because of the Board of Education making these racist decisions based on sex and their disregard for Islamic culture and Islamic countries, or on the fact that these people they had inbreds in their family, so they felt they need to help anyone who would, have an inbred, a history of inbreeding in the family, which is the wrong course of action. It is the wrong course of action because it wasn't like they were poor. They're not poor people. If you go into their homes, they live in mansions. It was really a cultural thing that I'm talking about, that they actually believe in this practice because they are Christians and they didn't agree with Islam. They especially didn't agree with my country, Turkey, because they were anti-Islamic, and as you know, the history of the Ottoman Empire is Islamic. It was Islamic ruled. It did have minorities in the region, but the subpopulations consisted of Christians, and they are one of those subpopulations from dating back to the Ottoman Empire. But I'm just kind of going to talk about that. I just wanted to say that in a second. That I didn't feel it was fair. Because I leaned toward the Turkish side, and so did my father. Because my father was, he wasn't trained by the military, but he was, I think he sided with his country more than my mother did, and more than these other people in my family did, because he had a history of being drafted in his military as a Turk. So he grew up with the Turkish mentality, and I grew up with the same. He raised me that way. These other people were from like countries like Syria or whatever. I'm fully Turkish, but somehow we still have like, cousins and stuff from other countries, Syria, Egypt, things like that. But the fact is, they believe in inbreeding because they don't believe in Islam. And for you to remain Christian in a majority Islamic state, the likelihood of you inbreeding increases. The amount of Christians in Turkey would be like 2%, 1%, and their specific type of Christianity requires them to find, a very small population of people. So they do believe in inbreeding. And the fact that this teacher, this dean, Danielle Domingo, she wanted to encourage me to stay on my mother's side and be a part of these people's lives who essentially believe in inbreeding, is ridiculous. That's how incompetent she was, and that's how much of a racist she was. In addition to her being a whack job. She wanted to give drugs out to children to teach them not to take drugs. It's just, you're a nutcase. You're going to disrupt their entire education, even teaching them about drugs. If you just don't encourage the behavior in the first place, they're not going to do it. It's that simple. You just don't encourage bad behavior. You don't encourage it in hopes that they learn their lesson, whatever. Also, so I'm not sure if this situation helped employ those specific people in like government. I don't know. I don't think it was right that ever could occur or should occur. It's essentially helping inbreds. I don't know what else it is. Also, I forgot to mention, in addition to being harassed, like me and my father were harassed by like the state and the police and the Board of Ed because they wanted to take me away from him and help my mother, whatever. We were attacked. These people follow us. They followed us for years. And somehow, I believe they got into our apartment and attacked us. I can't remember the situation completely because I was asleep, and I feel like they knocked me out. And I feel like it was one of the reasons my father passed away, because we wouldn't talk about it because it was such a strange occurrence that someone snuck into our apartment and attacked us both, and we couldn't pinpoint it. Because we were both very highly suspicious of it. We didn't know where it was coming from or why it was happening, and we didn't know who the person was, and I believe they injured me. I have my shoulders are slightly separated. My lower back, it feels as though my lower back was hit with an object, and I have the same feeling in my neck. It has cracked bones. And I think that's a result of being attacked. And when my father got ill, it could have been one of the reasons he became ill, because we were attacked in our apartment. And the fact that we couldn't remember it or even recall it is disgusting. It was disgusting because it's directly the result of being followed by these people. And it just balloons, you know, it's just one thing on top of another. You know, first it's the schools, then it's the police, then it's the agency that hired these other inbred people to work for them, like the government, they got hired in whatever, you know, Supreme Court or whatever. It's disgusting. So I just wanted to, you know, end on that note. I didn't know what to say. I had to take a minute to kind of like let it, you know, sink in, absorb, summarize it for you. So yeah. And also, it's funny because these people who are inbreeding, I think that they were already being watched by the government for inbreeding. I don't think when people inbreed that the government just lets it go. I think they have someone watching them the entire time, because obviously when you're creating children who require government aid because they're mentally retarded, because you chose to marry your cousin, because that's your so-called culture, the government keeps an eye on you for it. So I'm not sure if it's because of my situation in particular that the government kept watching, or the fact that these people have inbreds. And it's not just one. I know this boy in particular must be around 40 by now. I don't know his name, but I remember he was a mentally handicapped boy. When I went to church, he was an inbred. And there's another girl, my cousin, who, when I asked my parents about it, according to them, her father was like Egyptian, but they're still cousins. They're not like first cousins, but they're cousins. That's not the only case of inbreeding in my family. In fact, I think they believe in inbreeding. Well, not my family, my, I guess, ancestry and relatives. So I just wanted to say that. I hope you guys are okay. I still encourage the idea of writing down Dean Danielle Domingo. I don't think she's competent in raising or helping raise children or educating children. I don't think she's right in the head. She literally just attacked me for being Turkish, and that's completely wrong. But everyone else, I hope you guys are okay. I hope you're doing fine. I'm okay. I mean, like, I'm in here. Like, it's not the greatest. Like, sometimes I can't, like, shower because it's, like, you know, too cold, the water's cold or whatever. But, like, I'm, like, okay. Like, whatever. Hope you guys are cool, too. Okay, bye. Thanks.